What if death isn't the end, but a doorway? For centuries, different cultures have tried to answer the ultimate question: what happens after we die? Religions speak of heaven and hell. Science focuses on biological decay, and near-death experiences suggest glimpses into the unknown. But hidden within the ancient wisdom of Tibetan Buddhism lies a text that claims to map out the journey of the soul after death with astonishing detail. A book so powerful that it was once kept secret, revealed only to those prepared to understand its truth. This forbidden text, known as the Bardo Thodol, or the Tibetan Book of the Dead, describes the precise stages of the afterlife, the visions the soul encounters, and the moment when enlightenment, or reincarnation, is decided. It reveals that death is not an end, but a transition, a state where consciousness is tested, illusions must be overcome, and ultimate liberation is possible for those who recognize it. But here's the unsettling part. Most people fail the test. They enter death confused, trapped by their own fears, pulled into the cycle of rebirth and suffering, lifetime after lifetime, unaware of the opportunity to break free. Could it be that our greatest chance at awakening doesn't come in life, but in the very moment we leave it behind? We will decode the secrets of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, exploring the mysterious bardas, the visions of divine and wrathful beings, the karmic forces that shape the next life, and the path to ultimate freedom. Whether you fear death or seek to understand it, what you are about to learn could change the way you see existence itself. Humanity has searched for answers about what happens after death. Different cultures have their own interpretations, but few texts are as profound and mysterious as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or Bardo Thodol. Unlike Western religious perspectives, which often depict death as a final judgment, Tibetan Buddhism sees it as a transition, an opportunity for liberation. The Bardo Thodol isn't just a book, it's a spiritual roadmap. It describes, in extraordinary detail, the journey the soul takes after leaving the body. According to this ancient wisdom, death is not the end, but a doorway into different states of existence known as bardas. These are transitional realms where the soul has the chance to either achieve enlightenment or be pulled back into the cycle of samsara, the endless loop of birth, death, and rebirth. But here's where it gets truly fascinating. The text doesn't just describe what happens after death, it provides instructions for the dying. It teaches how to recognize the illusions of the mind, navigate the afterlife, and ultimately escape the cycle of reincarnation. Those who understand and apply these teachings can achieve liberation, freedom from suffering, an eternal state of enlightenment. Yet, despite its significance, the Tibetan Book of the Dead remains a mystery to most of the world. Hidden for centuries, it was reserved only for those deeply trained in Buddhist philosophy. But its teachings hold immense value for everyone, because whether we like it or not, death is the one certainty we all share. The origins of this book, however, are even more intriguing. The Tibetan Book of the Dead isn't just another ancient manuscript. It's a sacred transmission, believed to have been dictated by the enlightened master Padmasambhava in the 8th century. But here's where things get interesting. Legend has it that this text was hidden for centuries before it was rediscovered by a Buddhist mystic named Karma Lingpa in the 14th century. Why was it hidden? Because its wisdom was considered too powerful to be understood by the unprepared mind. Padmasambhava, also known as Guru Rinpoche, was more than just a Buddhist teacher. He was a mystic, a magician, and a master of consciousness. He didn't simply teach meditation. He showed his followers how to navigate the realms beyond death. According to legend, he buried the Bardo Thodol deep in the Himalayan mountains, knowing that it would only be found when humanity was ready for its wisdom. Unlike Western views of death, which often focus on fear and judgment, Tibetan Buddhism approaches death as a skill to be mastered. The book wasn't just written for the dead, it was written for the living, teaching people how to prepare for death while still alive. The better one understands the process, the more control they can have over what happens after they leave their body. For those who studied these teachings, death was not something to fear. It was an opportunity for enlightenment. But to navigate the afterlife successfully, one had to understand the bardas, the 3 stages that determine the fate of the soul. Most of the world sees death as an ending, but in Tibetan Buddhism, it is simply a transition, a passage from one state of existence to another. The moment life ends, the soul doesn't just disappear. Instead, it enters the Bardos, a series of intermediate realms where the consciousness either achieves enlightenment or is pulled back into reincarnation. This process is not random. It's deeply influenced by one's karma, attachments, and state of mind at the time of death. The Bardo Thodol describes these stages with striking detail. It teaches that those who are prepared can use the Bardos as a gateway to higher consciousness. But for the untrained mind, these realms can be overwhelming and confusing. Imagine suddenly stepping into a dreamlike dimension where your thoughts manifest instantly, where you see deities, illusions, and fragments of your past life. Without awareness, the soul can easily be trapped in cycles of fear and desire, leading it toward another rebirth instead of liberation. This is why the art of dying consciously was such a central practice in Tibetan Buddhism. Masters would meditate on death while still alive, preparing their minds so that when the moment came, they could navigate the afterlife with clarity. Some monks even practiced dream yoga, training themselves to stay aware in their dreams, because they believed the Bardos were just another form of lucid dreaming. But not all souls experience the same journey. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes 3 distinct stages, each with its own challenges and opportunities. The first, known as Chikai Bardo, happens the moment death occurs, and it is here that the soul encounters something extraordinary. The Chikai Bardo is the first stage after death, the exact moment when the soul detaches from the physical body. According to the Bardo Thodol, this is the most crucial phase, because in this instant, the soul is presented with the clear light, a radiant, all-encompassing brilliance that is nothing less than the true nature of pure consciousness. This is the opportunity for instant enlightenment, but most people don't recognize it. Why? Because the mind, conditioned by attachment and fear, clings to its old identity. The ego, which has spent a lifetime identifying with the body, panics as it realizes that it no longer exists in physical form. For those unprepared, this divine light appears overwhelming, even frightening. Instead of surrendering to it and merging with infinite awareness, many souls instinctively turn away, seeking familiar sensations. This is where the cycle of reincarnation begins. Tibetan monks train their entire lives for this moment. Through meditation, detachment, and mental clarity, they prepare themselves to recognize the clear light as their true nature, beyond thought, beyond time, beyond suffering. Those who achieve this state attain immediate liberation, breaking free from samsara, the cycle of death and rebirth. But for those who fail to recognize it, the journey through the Bardos continues. After missing this opportunity, the soul moves into the Koniad Bardo, a realm where the mind begins to project visions and deities, reflecting its deepest fears and desires. This next phase is where reality becomes truly surreal. After failing to recognize the clear light in the Chikai Bardo, the soul enters the Koniad Bardo, a realm unlike anything experienced in the physical world. Here, the soul is no longer bound by time or space. Instead, it encounters a vast, dreamlike dimension filled with visions, deities, and projections of its own consciousness. These are not external beings, but reflections of the soul's own mind, shaped by its karma, emotions, and past actions. At first, the soul may be greeted by peaceful deities, radiating compassion and wisdom. These divine figures represent the higher aspects of consciousness, the virtues cultivated in life, such as love, kindness, and wisdom. If the soul recognizes them as part of itself, it can merge with these energies and transcend to higher states of existence. But for most, this phase is confusing. The ego, still clinging to its old identity, resists surrendering to these peaceful forces, fearing the unknown. As the journey continues, the peaceful visions begin to dissolve, giving way to wrathful deities, frightening figures that appear monstrous, chaotic, even terrifying. But here's the truth. These entities are not demons or external forces. They are the soul's own unresolved fears, desires, and attachments, manifesting in symbolic form. The more fear a person carried in life, the more intense these visions become. Yet, for those who understand, these terrifying figures are actually another opportunity for enlightenment, if the soul can see past the illusion and recognize them as projections of its own mind. However, for those who cannot overcome these fears, the journey continues into the final and most consequential stage, the Siddha Bardo, where the forces of karma take full control, pulling the soul toward its next rebirth. By the time the soul reaches the Siddha Bardo, the journey has reached its most decisive moment. If enlightenment was not achieved in the earlier stages, the soul is now drawn into the forces of karma, the accumulated actions, desires, and attachments from its past life. Unlike the dreamlike state of the Coneyad Bardo, where visions could still be transcended, this final phase is dominated by cause and effect, pulling the soul toward its next reincarnation. At this point, the soul no longer has full control over its destiny. It is guided, or rather, compelled, by its past thoughts and behaviors, gravitating toward a reality that matches its energetic imprint. Those who lived a life full of greed, hatred, or ignorance will be drawn into lower realms of existence, while those who cultivated wisdom and compassion are led toward more favorable rebirths. This is the unbreakable law of karma in motion. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes this stage as one of deep longing and confusion. The soul, still clinging to its former self, feels an intense desire to find a new body, a new form of existence where it can reattach to physical reality. It begins to perceive the process of conception, drawn toward parents who vibrationally match its unresolved karma. If it fails to recognize what's happening, it gets pulled into rebirth, forgetting its past existence and restarting the cycle of samsara all over again. However, even here, a final opportunity exists. If the soul has enough awareness to recognize this cycle as an illusion, it can detach from the pull of reincarnation and awaken to liberation. But for most, this is where the journey resets, and the cycle of life and death continues, unless one prepares while still alive to break free. The clear light of death is the ultimate moment of truth, the fleeting window where absolute liberation is possible. The Bardo Thodol teaches that at the instant of death, the soul is bathed in an overwhelming, infinite radiance, a light so powerful and all-encompassing that it dissolves all illusion. This is not a vision, a deity, or an external force. It is pure consciousness, the essence of existence itself. Those who can recognize it as their true nature merge with it instantly, achieving nirvana and escaping the endless cycle of samsara. However, this moment is brief. For most, the ego clings to its sense of self, unable to accept this boundless, formless state. The fear of losing identity becomes so overwhelming that the soul instinctively turns away, seeking something familiar, thoughts, memories, or desires from its past life. This simple act of attachment pulls the soul into the lower bardos, leading it back toward reincarnation. This is why Tibetan monks spend their lives preparing for death. Through deep meditation, they train their minds to embrace the clear light when the moment comes. Instead of fearing dissolution, they understand that merging with this light is the ultimate freedom, the realization that there was never any separation to begin with. They practice dream yoga, visualization, and mantra recitations to ensure that when death arrives, they are fully conscious and ready to transcend. For the untrained mind, this opportunity is often lost. But even then, the soul is not abandoned. The next stages of the afterlife will present other chances for enlightenment, though in far more challenging ways. In the Coneyad Bardo, these lessons take the form of divine beings, peaceful and wrathful, all reflections of the soul's own mind. In the Coneyad Bardo, the soul enters a realm where it encounters divine beings, some peaceful, others terrifying. But here's the crucial truth. None of these beings are external entities. They are projections of the soul's own mind, symbolic manifestations of the emotions, karma, and experiences accumulated over a lifetime. For the unprepared, this stage can feel like a chaotic nightmare. But for those who understand what's happening, it is yet another opportunity for enlightenment. First, the soul is greeted by the peaceful deities, radiant, compassionate beings emanating wisdom and serenity. They appear as Buddhas, bodhisattvas, and celestial figures, offering guidance and inviting the soul to merge with them. If the soul recognizes these figures as reflections of its own higher consciousness, it can transcend the bardas and achieve liberation. However, if the soul clings to fear, doubt, or attachments, it fails to accept this opportunity. Then, the peaceful deities vanish, and the wrathful deities appear. These beings are monstrous, intimidating, and seemingly destructive. They roar, wield weapons, and create terrifying illusions. But here's the secret. They are not enemies, nor are they punishing the soul. They are, in fact, the same divine forces as the peaceful deities, just appearing in a more forceful form. Their terrifying presence is meant to shock the soul into awareness, breaking attachments and forcing it to see through illusion. For the wise, even the most terrifying deity is simply a mirror. But for those who remain trapped in fear and ignorance, these encounters become overwhelming. Instead of realizing that these figures are symbolic tests of the soul's evolution, many react with terror, pushing themselves further into confusion. And as this stage unfolds, the next reality takes shape, the final judgment of karma, where the soul's fate is determined. By the time the soul reaches this stage, there is no turning back. The visions of deities have faded, the illusions have passed, and what remains is the undeniable force of karma, the sum of all actions, thoughts, and intentions from past lives. In the Sitpa Bardo, the weight of karma determines the soul's next incarnation, shaping its future existence in ways that many fail to comprehend while alive. Karma is not punishment. It is simply cause and effect, the spiritual law that ensures every action carries consequences. A life spent cultivating wisdom, compassion, and clarity leads to a favorable rebirth, perhaps in a realm of great spiritual opportunity, or even as an enlightened being who has the power to help others. But a life consumed by greed, anger, or ignorance pulls the soul into lower realms of suffering. These realms are not eternal damnation. They are learning experiences, designed to reflect the energy that the soul carried in life. The Tibetan Book of the Dead describes this moment vividly. The soul is drawn toward different visions of potential parents, each representing a vibrational match to its karma. The moment it feels attachment to one, whether through longing or fear, it is pulled into a new body, beginning the cycle of samsara once again. Most souls enter this process unconsciously, forgetting everything they experienced in the bardas. But those who have trained their minds can choose their next incarnation consciously, setting their own destiny with intention. But is there a way to escape this cycle? Tibetan Buddhism teaches that while alive, one can break free from the pull of karma by practicing detachment, mindfulness, and awareness. Instead of being controlled by past actions, one can transcend them. And for those who seek true liberation, the answer lies in preparing the mind for death long before it arrives. If there is one ultimate lesson from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it is this: death is not the end, it is the final test. But here's the truth that few realize: you don't have to wait until death to prepare for it. Liberation is not something that happens in the afterlife. It is a state of mind that can be cultivated while still alive. And for those who seek to break free from samsara, the endless cycle of reincarnation, the time to start is now. Tibetan monks dedicate their lives to meditation, mindfulness, and detachment, training their minds to see beyond illusion. They practice lucid dreaming, visualization, and mantra recitations, all designed to help them recognize the bardas when the moment comes. The ultimate goal? To remain fully conscious at the moment of death and recognize the clear light for what it is: pure consciousness, free from fear, form, or attachment. For the untrained mind, death is a storm of confusion. For the prepared, it is a doorway. The Bardo Thodol teaches that those who live with clarity, presence, and detachment have the greatest chance of achieving enlightenment in the afterlife. But even if one does not reach full liberation, a life spent in spiritual practice ensures a higher rebirth, where the journey can continue with greater wisdom. The real question is, are you living your life in a way that prepares you for what comes next? Because whether you believe in reincarnation or not, One thing is certain. Death is coming for us all. The only difference is whether we face it in fear or in total awareness. Now that you know the secrets hidden within the Tibetan Book of the Dead, one question remains. Are you ready for what comes next? Most people live their lives fearing death, avoiding the thought of it, pretending it's far away. But ignoring the inevitable doesn't change reality. The truth is, whether we're prepared or not, the journey through the Bardas awaits us all. But here's the difference. You now have knowledge that most people will never even hear about. You understand that death is not just an end, but a test of awareness, detachment, and recognition. The question is, will you face it blindly, trapped by illusion, or will you use this life to prepare your mind, raise your consciousness, and take control of your own destiny? Because liberation isn't given, it's earned. You've already taken the first step just by seeking this knowledge. But don't stop here. Keep going, keep learning, keep expanding your awareness. And if you're ready to unlock more hidden truths about the nature of reality, subscribe to the Lost Frequency and turn on notifications, because the journey doesn't end here. After all, the greatest mysteries of existence are still waiting to be uncovered.